Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday. I am sports mental health empowerment coach and couple marriage and family therapist, Dr. Lauren Pitts. My amazing co-host, Ronnie Ransome Jr., is finally back. We missed you. You all
Man, I
know
missed
Mr.
y'all
Ted
too.
Wright. Indeed, indeed. You all know Mr. Ted Wright is back with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, this is House Talk Pregame. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back.
I'm glad to be back. I know some of y'all probably thinking like, dang, like Ronnie just don't come on the show no more at all. But no, life has just been extremely busy the last few weeks. So but I'm glad to be back today. So we got a pack filled show for y'all today. Going to be discussing a lot of things, going over a lot of things. It's been I guess a polite way to say it's been a heavy week.
Yeah.
For our entire country, it's been a heavy week. A lot of emotions and just a lot of things just going on that I'm gonna need Mercury to just go ahead and get out of retrograde next week because boy, I don't know if people who listen to it follow astrology and whatnot, but ever since May 10th, world's just been like it's just been upside down. But we like to be on here and spread some positivity and some joy in y'all's lives, because sometimes it can just get real heavy and bogged down. So we're gonna try and change that for y'all today. It's Memorial Day weekend. It's finally some beautiful weather here in Virginia. I have not seen blue sky in 6 days here because it is rain like I need to go find Noah's Ark. So we're gonna be getting into our topic and stuff real soon. But first, definitely got to go over our mental health tips of the week and everything. Definitely our mental health tips of the week this week are going to be, definitely profound and heavy because, it seems like, as a collective, our mental health have just been tested and challenged and exhausted and drained. And, everybody has their breaking point. And so, I think as a collective, it's one thing for people to say, yeah, everybody's going through something. It's one thing to say that. It's a whole nother thing to live that and really, understand that everybody's going through something. And, we should all try to take, have a little bit more patience and understanding with each other before we just, react and make haste decisions. So we're going to be getting into that in a few. We have a great topic lined up for you all today, too. Another emotional, talking about pride. And, not only athletes, but just people's pride in general. Pride can be a great thing, but also can be your biggest detriment in your personal life too. So we're going to talk about how pride can work in your advantage as an athlete and as just a regular person, and also how it can work against you in your favor and as a person as well. So we're going to be getting into all of that. And remember, people, we're on here every Saturday at 11 a.m. first thing in the morning. You can also catch us on HSRN as one of our other pre-recorded shows that we've done. Also, you can catch us at 10 o'clock at night. I ain't mentioned it in a while, but look, we still compete with the Quiet Storm. Ted, Ted, it's been a while since I talked to you, man. So, look, they moved us to 10 o'clock at night because they realized that, our voices are tranquil enough that you can fall asleep to our voices. Our game that we spit on this show, you can fall asleep to and really learn some things. So they put us out there at the same time as the Quiet Storm. So Ted, when you and your wife are laying down at night listening to the Quiet Storm, just kick it on over to HSRN and just let me and Dr. Pitt soothe y'all to sleep. If that doesn't float your boat, you can catch us on Sundays after church, after you get that meal in you at 6 o'clock in the evening. Start your week off with some positivity and stuff. But remember this: HSRN is empowering the HBCU families' head, heart, and hands to deliver the impact we all know it can. So not only check out our show, but check out all the other great shows that are on HSRN as well. So before we get into our mental health tips of the week, our topic, like I said, for the day is when pride goes wrong. So, pride is a symptom of wrong thinking. We think that the things that give us an elevated opinion of ourselves are a result of our own doing. Ignore the symptoms of pride too long, and we're headed for a nasty fall. The more we stand out in our appearance, personality, intellect, position, accomplishments, ability, etc., the more susceptible we are to pride. We possess something that compels us to think that we are above others. Even the realization that we have appeared to be humble has a way of making us prideful. So once again, we're going to be talking about, how pride can be a good thing and a bad thing. So enough of me rambling. Dr. Pitts definitely has some news to share with us this morning, as well as some mental health tip of the week. So I'm going to give the floor over to Dr. Pitts. Go ahead, Dr. Pitts.
Yeah, so um, first and foremost, we're still in the official month of May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. And as we were talking before the show went live, for us as clinicians, mental health awareness is every day. It's not just the month of May. Um, Suicide is a leading cause of death in the United States and a major public health concern. When a person dies by suicide, the effects are felt by family, friends, and communities. And on top of the horrific massacre that occurred at Robb Elementary in Uvalde, Texas on Tuesday, I received a heartbreaking call last night that one of my colleagues allegedly had taken his own life just out of respect and privacy for the family. I'm not going to mention the family's name or the colleague's name. But what I do want to ask our listeners to do is to pray as we're praying for just the horrific um, incident in Uvalde and the community and all of those connected to the community and to the nation. We really need to be prayerful about the mental health of us as a nation. Um, I promise I'm not going to go off. I don't even have at this stage of the game. I've cried so much in the past few hours that I just, and this week, I've just been crying every day. Um, I don't have the energy to go off, but I will say this. I find it extremely horrifying that we live in a nation where we can go before the Supreme Court to overturn Roe v. Wade and to um, make abortion illegal again, but we don't want to change gun laws. And we know that having stricter gun laws doesn't solve all of the problems. But what we do know is this: the United States is the only country in the world that has the lax gun laws that we have. And when you look at the mass shooting wall, when you look at the mass shooting statistics that exist in this country, it is horrific. It is absolutely horrific. Whether it's one life lost, 30 lives lost, 19, 20, it doesn't matter. One life lost to gun violence is one too many. And oh, by the way, there isn't even enough time to talk about the gun violence that exists in our communities day to day that don't make national headline news. The ramifications of these massacres, because that's what they are, the ramifications of these massacres are going to have lasting mental health impact for a lifetime for many of these victims and survivors in the communities at large. There are some traumatic experiences that, quite frankly, people just don't recover from. And the additional issues that are going to arise as a result of these horrific incidents is deeply concerning, because what it does is it really can potentially set a domino effect. It can set a domino effect that gives space for additional events to happen because of the fractured mental health of those impacted. So these events are comparable to an atom bomb. They're an atom bomb that in some cases fractures, in some cases erodes, and in some cases destroys the mental health of those involved. And at some point in time, we as citizens have to take a stand. We don't have to storm the Capitol in an insurrection, but we can storm the voting polls. We can vote at the local level, at the regional level, at the national level to have legislation changed. I had a thought, Ted and Ronnie, and I'm sure I know that I'm not the only person who's thought this. I said, what would happen if just over the past 20 years, those that have been victimized by these mass shootings, if every survivor and all of those that are deeply concerned about this systemic issue in our country, what if we all came together in alliance and went to Capitol Hill? We can have protests individually all over the country, but if somebody somewhere, with that paper, because money talks, if the athletes, if the A-list Hollywood folks, if folks that really have a platform to be heard, I was listening to Rich Eisen yesterday, and he said something powerful. He said, I don't care if you have guns in your house, as long as when my kid comes over to your house, they're locked up. Because, the Republicans and the NRA and all of these people, and I'll tell you, I used to be a member of the NRA. I'm not anymore. But I did used to be a member. When I really got a much deeper understanding of what it meant, I'm like, you know what? I don't have to be a member of the NRA to carry, Our voice and our vote is our power. And I could be wrong, but I don't think that I have the pull to be able to unify everybody. But I'm putting it out there. If anybody is already thinking about it, I say that's something that needs to happen. Every survivor, every family member of a survivor, for these mass shootings that have happened over the past 2 decades, if we could come together and march on Washington for that cause, to have legislation changed around these guns. What is so hard about having a universal background check? Cops have to have a psych eval. Military personnel have to have a psych eval. As clinicians, we have to have an FBI background clearance. We have to go through, child abuse and neglect screening. But an 18-year-old can, and why do gun stores have military grade assault weapons in the store anyway? What the heck do you need a military grade weapon for? Really? I grew up on a farm in southern New Jersey. We didn't need an AK-47 to kill deer. You don't need a Uzi to go rabbit hunting. You don't need a Tech 9 to get snapper turtle. It makes no sense. And we have to. We had the Million Man March on DC, Martin Luther King spoke in DC. We've got all these rallies about LGBTQIA plus issues, about Roe v. Wade, racism, everything else. We march on Washington for everything. We need to be marching on Washington to have these gun laws changed. And it needs to start with the people that have the platform and the money to rally folks from all across this country, and truth be told, all over the world. I have an international clientele that I work with. There was not a single solitary international client that I met with this week that wasn't deeply saddened and moved to tears by what we're doing. And here was the standard question. Dr. Pitts, what is going on over there? What is wrong with the US? You know how embarrassing that is? To have to answer that question every day, 13, 14, 15 times a day? It's disgraceful. There needs to be a march on the Capitol. There needs to be a march to address this. And I am appealing to anybody and everybody that has a platform and the money to make it happen. It needs to happen. I will get on a plane and I will come to DC. I've never marched in my life, but I'll march for that. I will march for that because I've been a victim of gun violence. I've lost family members and friends and loved ones to gun violence. I've had family members imprisoned because of gun violence. I've lost family members and friends to suicide by gun. It's old. I'll tell you all this, and then I'm gonna shut up. When I got that call yesterday, for the first time, I want to say sincerely, ever, I said, you know what? I don't want to be a therapist no more. I can't do this no more. Kids are my heart. I'm a mom. And I know everybody in the nation is talking trash on that woman whose son was responsible for this. But he was somebody's child too. And he was sick. Nobody in their right mind will walk into a school and shoot 19 babies. Nobody would do that. He was sick. And it's not enough to talk. We got to do something. Because I never thought that it would come that I would say, I don't want to be a therapist no more. I'm giving serious consideration to going into corporate development and training because my heart. How does one town, there's only 7 days in a week. There's only 24 hours in a day. How do you plan to bury 19 babies? How do you do that? I can't.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate your words, Dr. Pitts.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think, there's no right answer as to how, there's no one right answer how you solve this issue. I definitely agree there has to be, some reform of gun laws. Should an 18-year-old be able to walk into a gun store and purchase AR or any type of weapon outside of a pistol at 18? Probably not, especially if you have no training, no experience, don't even know if you can even hold the weapon, shoot it properly, none of that. So I definitely agree there needs to be some type of formal training, formal education, formal respect given. One of the things my dad always taught me, my dad was special forces in the military, and I was raised, he never kept his guns, out around us. He had them and we knew this is not something you just play with. One of the things he always taught me about guns, vehicles, and drugs, if you disrespect them, they will disrespect you in return. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the biggest lessons he always told me. If you disrespect the gun, it will disrespect you in some way, shape, or form. If you disrespect a car, it will disrespect you back in one way, shape, or form. Same thing with drugs, money, any of that. So I think what we see here is, one thing I've always said, when it comes to things like situations like this, I think as a collective, sometimes we get so quick to blame the gun or the inanimate object or the issue here, when this is a people issue. There's no other way around. This is a people issue. When you look at that town outside of the police department probably didn't have the amount of community resources necessary to make sure this doesn't happen. And we see this all over the country. I think as much as we look to the government to be our saviors, I think one of the things we fail at is group economics. I think one of the things we also fail at is group accountability and group villages. I think as a collective, as these local communities and stuff like that, we don't village around each other enough anymore. We don't hold each other accountable for just us anymore. We just sit there and like, the government will take care of it. The government will fix this. They'll fix that. This is what we vote y'all in for. We'll fix that. And then even at that level, who's policing them? Because none of us police them. To your point, yeah, marching on to Capitol Hill and storming the White Houses or the Capitol and all that, that's not maybe the best way to go about it. But when we see these things going on and we don't hold them accountable, we just go about our days and whatnot. Yeah, everybody has their thoughts and prayers, condolences, and all that. Thoughts and prayers don't bring them kids back. Thoughts and prayers ain't about to change these laws either, or how we deal with each other as a society. I think one of the biggest failures of our leadership is that they fail to enhance the quality of life of society. Like, you might enhance the quality of life of a certain collective of individuals, whether it's LGBTQIA, the Asian American population. You might improve their quality of life through certain laws and stuff like that. But as an overall collective of just American citizens, we don't do that enough. They don't try to invest in the citizens in the way that should. Like, to your point, yes, that kid, he did not have what we would consider clinically a healthy, rational mind, not even in the slightest. And as more and more details come out about him as an individual, once again, I always say this, I never sit there and say or justify anybody's actions. Everybody's actions, good or bad, have good or bad consequences depending on what you do. So I will never sit there and say anybody's actions are ever justified. However, I have a hell of a picture for how he got to this point. Mm-hmm. Like the picture was painted clear. Like, this kid from jump, it was just a recipe, just building and building and building for something disastrous for like this to happen. Once again, like, just the level of he reached, I mean, it's just unfathomable, unspeakable. And his soul got to deal with those consequences, and however that works, it's above my pay grade. However, I think for us as a people, like, we have a people issue. We have a severe people issue. I'm not about to sit here and blame guns, drugs, or anything. We have a people issue. We have a people issue because we don't know how to deal with each other. Sometimes we don't want to deal with each other. Mm-hmm. I get it. A lot of us have our own stuff going on in our own individual life. That's cool and everything. But we're all here on this planet, on this moving, spinning rock for a reason. Every one of us. None of us get out of alive. None of us, we live to 200-300 years old and say, all right, you good now. No, we're here for a short time and a good time. But it can be a good time when literally the entire country is hurting. Like I said earlier, everybody's going through something. Yet we always fail to overlook that when something happens to us. It's funny how, everybody's going through something, but the moment something happens to an individual, man, I don't care about that. What about me? It's never about you. It's about us. It's about we. So until we start really posing our efforts on we as a people, I don't wish this to happen on no family or nobody, but I'd be lying to you if I didn't sit there and say it's just gonna stop if we don't change this.
Hey, I wanted to just say, Steve Kerr. I wanted, I've never seen a person in the sports arena as passionate and believable in a press conference as he was, and he basically gave us a blueprint. It starts with them 50 people that we're being held hostage by. And we haven't done as a people our own investigation, as Dr. Pitts said, at the level of voting in our local districts. Mm-hmm. And on that level, and asking those questions, where's your position, sir, on gun violence? What are you going to be doing about that? What laws are you looking to implement to change this in our community right here? And most people aren't asking those questions. They're letting their politicians talk to them about what they want to do, but it's skirting the real issues that we may have. So that's part of it. If we can replace those people, since we're the body they're representing, with the people who see and have the values that we stand on, then some of those decisions and those laws would get changed that would probably help our society. Now, reality, it comes down to money. People got back doors. People got alliances with all this other stuff that we don't see. However, we still have to look at it in terms of that's the approach that we have to make. And if we have to expose some of those things, then we do. Um, Dr. Pitts, you want, I mean, it tore me apart to see you say, and I know how passionate you are about mental health and helping people, to say you want to walk away from being in a position to use your gift to help people. I pray for you that God puts it on your heart to stay, because you and Ronnie are necessary. You can't vacate the space now. It's too critical. I'm saying this selfishly because I don't know what it does to you when you have to interact with it, because I'm not in those rooms. I'm not on those phone calls and those video sessions. However, I think that if you can help one, it's like the 99 may be out there, but you still got to go get the one. And we got to have quality people like you and Brother Ransome and other people who think like you to still be in the gap to help those few that we can help. The struggle also is our society needs to have awareness. There's no way that when that young man was 15 years old and we're starting to see these things based on them coming out in the news, there were signs. Mm-hmm. There were things going on in this young man's life, that were evidence of a fall. Now, what it was, maybe people laughed it off, or it's just not really that serious or whatever. But in today's society, we can't take the little thing and sweep it under the rug and think, oh, that's just him. That's just a quirky thing with him. And we not being watchful of these things. When we see people who have problems, we got to step to them. Now, Ronnie said, the village approach. I agree with it. I talk to my neighbors. I want to get to know them and their kids, but everybody ain't like that. And some neighbors don't even want to open up and give you that kind of autonomy to even get into their space. You can't check my kid. Who are you to say my kid is going down the wrong path? Who are you? And so because they see it, they just don't want it to be exposed, and then we get smoked. So we still have to be aggressive enough to say we're going to do it anyway. If we see it, we report it. And if it turns out to be nothing, great. I'd rather err on the side of judgment and say, check that dude out. And if you come back and he's good, I'm okay, but he can be mad for me the rest of my life. But if I'm right, maybe we prevent some of these things from happening in the future.
Yeah, like I said, I think, I think as much as we definitely need to hold, the federal level of our, political system accountable. We need to hold the local level accountable. But, like you said, we also need to hold each other accountable. Like, obviously, we're not saying going around and make judgments to people and stuff like that, but build rapport people. Build, like you said, know your neighbor. Like if you can't even have a conversation with your next door neighbor, then either you need to evaluate yourself and your surroundings, or maybe they need to evaluate themselves and their surroundings. But far too many times, and we were talking about this kind of before the show, and I don't want to ramble on about it too long, but we were talking about how, like, when you build, a society that, or as long as the majority is okay, it really doesn't matter how everybody else feels. As long as the majority is cool, everything else will fall into place. When you allow that to just run rampant forever and don't have the proper checks and balances, we see these issues. So I think, I think this is a collective effort. It's not, we can't point fingers. This is a accountability issue for our country, not just one individual or a group of individuals. This is a countrywide accountability thing that, not only with guns, but with our communities, our schools, our education, our, families, all those things need to be evaluated and rechecked as a whole. So, I think all those things play into each other. It's not just one thing is causing one thing. It's a multifaceted system that has been established and has been allowed to just run forever and starting to fall apart. Like, maintenance been on it. So now we need to maintenance in it and really get it back to where it needs. Well, not back to where it needs to be, but to a level where it can, we don't have these issues as much, or hopefully anymore. So, I and I definitely second what Ted said, Dr. Pitts, and me and you talked about this all the time. Like, and to Ted, to answer your question, some days are, it's not fun. Like, some days are not fun to be a therapist, sometimes people come to you with things and they look to you to be, the person that can spark a light when they see nothing but darkness. And while yeah, that it's an honorable position to be in and a humbling position to be in, like we said, everybody has their limits, and as much balance as you can have in your life, sometimes things can just be too much. So yeah, Dr. Pitt, obviously, we would never want you to not be a therapist no more. But I honestly, I don't even think, even if you didn't have the official title, I just think who you are as a person, like it'll just come to you naturally. Like it'll just, I think you therapize people even when you don't try to therapize people. And it's not, I always tell people, like, one of the biggest things I don't like about being a therapist is that people think that when I talk to them, I'm talking to them always as a therapist. I'm like, no, like what we learn in therapy is just how you should be as a human. Like we just spent thousands and thousands of dollars to really know what that means and what that looks like. And we just try to spread that message to others. So it's not like we sit from a position of this high and mighty, like, we're absolved from the world. No, like we are in the world with you. We are just these few selected people who are trying to paint a different perspective for you to make meaning in your life. And sometimes, trying to help people find the meaning in their life, it doesn't take meaning from our lives, but it takes, so yeah, no, I feel you when you say that, Dr. Pitts. I damn sure can't be no therapist in my 50s and 60s, because where the world is now, I ain't even 30 and I lost all my hair dealing with these people. So
Yeah, when you're in any position of service where you're serving other people, I'm even throwing it like pastors. I just couldn't understand, like, got all these people who got all these problems, and they're coming to you, throwing all this stuff on top of you, and there's no way in the world that you can't have residue from that. And so I just don't know how you all do it, but I am just so thankful that God gave you the gift to, because it's I know what I see on the news, and I know somebody behind the scenes are interacting with those people trying to find out what's really going on, and I just can't imagine being those people. And so I thank you both for what you do, and I commend you and the rest of the people, whoever's listening. If you're in this profession already and you're having thoughts like Dr. Pitts, who fit, like, it's overwhelming, stick the course. For those people out there who have a heart to serve in that industry, and you're thinking about becoming a therapist, don't turn around and go the other way because you think it's too much. The more people that come in with the right heart to serve, we can really be, I believe you all can be impactful in making our society a better place. So I commend you. I know God's given you the strength to do what you do. So I know your knees may be buckling, but carry that cross because it's necessary. Thank you.
thank you, Ted. Thank you, Ted. Thank you. All right, Dr. Pitts, did you have any final thoughts before we
Just that just piggybacking on what Ted said about you have to pay attention. You have to err on the side of caution, right? Don't dismiss the warning signs as quirks or just jokes or whatever the case may be. This young man asked his sister back in September to buy him a gun. That for what? That's a conversation. And I'm not saying that she did or didn't say anything to anybody. I don't know. But we need to take everything seriously when it comes to mental health. We have to. If you or someone that is in crisis, you can call 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. That is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. You have representatives available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the information is confidential. And it's available to everyone. You're not alone. You're not alone. There are those of us who care deeply. You have family members and friends and people who genuinely love you and care about you, even though you feel like you're not loved. We care. We care. And now we've got to put a stop to all of this senseless craziness. That's all I have, Ronnie. Let's talk about pride, because I know you needed to leave a little early today.
Yeah, I'm sorry, people. I got an exit stage left at 12. But yeah, so let's go ahead and jump into this topic. So, when we think of pride, I think for most of us, when we hear the word pride, we think of like, standing on your morals or standing on your beliefs or whatever it is. And, I think, pride can be an admirable thing. Pride, depending on what your morals or beliefs are, standing on those and not backing down, your pride can definitely work in your favor. I think now I'm not going to quote anything from the Bible. These two people on here know way, 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 way more specific verses than I do. However, I would think they would both agree that there are various parts of the Bible that talk about, individuals standing on their pride and not bucking or not wavering, and it paying off dividends for them and their people. I'm not going to name names or stories or books in the Bible because I don't know the specifics, but these wonderful gentlemen and lady do. So I'll let them bring that up. But when we think of the athletes with their pride, and I think all athletes can, feel me when I say this. I think all of us as athletes have a level of pride that, you have to have in order to, really achieve a level of success and greatness in your individual sport. Me being an offensive lineman, playing football, you have to have a level of pride about your work ethic, your responsibilities. Like as a lineman, my job is to, block and create holes for the running backs, protect the quarterback at all costs, and protect his blind side and protect his pocket and everything, making sure he has enough time and just doing our job. You have to take pride in that because there's somebody literally 6 inches from your face on the other side who their pride is set up to do everything opposite of what you set out to do. Their job is to literally make the quarterback's day a living hell, to make the quarterback not be able to focus, make the running back not get any yards, not be able to pass to the receivers. They stand on that pride and they will do whatever it takes to get there. So there has to be a certain level of pride that you exhibit and that you have about yourself as an athlete just to be great and successful. But we also know that as much as pride can work in your favor, pride can also work against you as well. And let me give you some examples real quick. Some examples of your pride not working in your favor is if you, let's say, for example, you are, a highly recruited student athlete. You go to college or whatnot. You walk out there. You clearly feel like you're the best player out there. Because of that, you don't really create rapport and friendships and connections with your teammates. You always feel like if an upperclassman tries to give you a game or teach you about something, bro, I'm here to replace you anyways. What am I listening to you for? As opposed to really understanding this person's been in this system for a couple of years. This person knows the coaches. He's seen the coaches outside of recruiting time. Because all my athletes out there know coaches can be as real as they want to, but if there's one thing they're gonna polish up is that recruiting trip. It'd be the nicest person to you in the world. I mean, the nicest. Tell you everything you want to hear. Tell you all the good things about yourself. The moment you walk your butt on that field, like, dang, coach, he was nice in January. What happened? So, but when you let your pride get in the way as a freshman athlete and you feel like you know it all already, and I was all state, I was all American in high school. I'm coming here like y'all brought me here. Y'all need me. And next thing you know, you're riding the bench for the next 3 years because you thought they needed you, when in all reality, they needed you to be the best person you can be, a part of our team, not just be the best person, period. So, pride can work again for you and against you. And I think, you have to, as an athlete, find that level of your pride being, your asset and not a liability. Dr. Pitts, so I'll pass it over to you. Share me some of your thoughts on when you hear the word pride.
So I want to, I want to just share a couple of quick excerpts from the Sports Journal on pride. Okay. Talking about the nature of pride and its positive functions. Pride is a basic emotion observed universally in human beings. It's exhibited through specific and recognizable nonverbal expressions spontaneously displayed when individuals experience pride. When they include a low intensity smile, expanded posture, slight head tilt, and arms to the side with hands on hips or raised above the head with hands and fists. Children exhibit recognizable signs of pride by the age of 2.5 years and are able to recognize physical expressions of pride in others by age 4. Pride is generally considered to be a positive emotion. It can be thought of as a sense of accomplishment and satisfaction in one's actions. Pride is often linked to success, and it is achieved through the receipt of social approval and the admiration of others. When individuals are rewarded with positive feedback and when they see faces brimming with pride over their accomplishments, They feel pride and understand that they stand well in comparison to others. In contrast, though, pride can degenerate into something abhorrent. Athletes cheat and injure others in order to achieve success and bolster their pride. Coaches can become controlling and abusive of athletes as they seek success and enhancement of their pride. Parents meddle into the affairs of coaches and abuse their children in the pursuit of athletic success, their means to enhancing parental pride. Pride can be the motivation for antagonistic actions as individuals compete for the social standing, fame, and riches associated with athletic success. In truth, pride is a double-edged, destructive, and ludicrous in the wrong place and the wrong proportions, but heroic and admirable in the right places.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think pride is one of those emotions where the way you painted it, I think pride is like with any emotion. Pride can be an asset or a liability, just like anger. I was just having this conversation with somebody yesterday. When we think about anger, we automatically think anger is just a negative feeling and stuff like that. When in reality, anger is telling us something. It's an emotion that tells us something that our brain is perceiving that we need to be aware of, whether it's I'm being hurt or I don't feel safe and secure around somebody or something. That anger that manifests from that is a tall tale sign. Now, how you express that anger, obviously, if you express it and lash out and throw a tantrum or, are physically violent or verbally violent, whatever the case may be, you probably not going to get the results you wanted. But if you can express that anger and use it to your ability to get out of harm's way, or do you have a plan in place, or if you have to defend yourself, do that. It can work in your, favor. Same thing with pride. I think when pride is used in the right way, like I said, when you're looking from in a sports perspective and you use pride in a way of like taking pride in your craft, taking pride in being a student athlete, meaning taking pride in going to class without the coach having to come behind you and check on you, taking pride in going to study hall and actually engaging with the tutors and doing the work right there so you can have free time to work on other stuff, taking pride in your body, making sure you're putting the right nutrients and stuff in your body, getting the proper sleep, proper rehab and treatment if you need it, and just taking pride on the field, on the court, whatever the case may be. And practice, make sure you're going through practice, not half motion or half-heartedly, but actually doing everything full speed. So when game time gets here, it just clicks for you. You just out there having a good time. But you have to take pride in those things. Those things don't just come to you if you don't put in the work. Right. Coaches always say, you don't work, you don't eat, you don't grind, you don't shine. But you have to take pride in that.
Pride is another thing based on discipline. And I see it's self-pride is taking the initiative to do the things that you can do to take advantage of the gifts that God already gave you and keeping those things in perspective of that he gave you the gift. You're only in honing, you're taking the talent, you're expanding it. But then at the end of the day, where the line gets crossed is when we start believing that it's really us through our own activities and all the stuff that I've been doing and the weight room and all this stuff gave me these gifts and talents that are performing out on the field in these extraordinary type situations. And even in personal life, we have a level of success. You go back, people start to inflate you. And this is where we get it twisted. Man, you were great. Awesome job, man. If it wasn't for you, it wouldn't have never happened. ... And in your brain is reading your own press.
That hubristic pride.
Now you walk around thinking it's all about you and you reading it and you absorbing it. And now you become this person who now looks for the faults in other people to maintain that status. And I'm going to read something that I just looked up under pride. And it said, pride is often driven by poor self-worth and shame. It says, we feel so badly about ourselves that we compensate by feeling superior. We look at others' flaws as ways to conceal our own. We relish to criticize others as a defense and against recognizing our own shortcomings. So when I can't do it, I'm gonna break you down so I don't look bad or look like I wasn't able to. So false pride, and there's a sense of having pride in yourself and your ability that you were given a God-given talent. And that's why I kind of think there's a distinction.
Absolutely, and I think we see a lot of examples of false pride everywhere. Even as athletes, we see a sense of false pride. How many times during the course of a game, and you hear coaches say this all the time: let them talk. Whatever they say, don't matter. You got a game.
Right.
You have a game plan. Focus on your
Right.
game plan. And how many
Win.
times somebody get to talking, running their mouth? Next thing you know, hey, bro, you got one more time to call me the B word. You got to stand on that. Like, you got to show me I'm one.
Yeah.
I always say, like, as men, I don't know how women are with pride. Well, I know how women can be with pride. Let me take that back. I don't understand from a woman's perspective how pride is set up.
Don't start.
But Ted, I think you would agree as men, when it comes to, like, when another man is like trying to, challenge your character and your demeanor, it's almost sometimes like we hear the word, you have to swallow your pride and let it go. That's always easier said than done in the moment, especially for athletes. When athletes are, just seen as, just hyper alpha males, like you are the one, like you are the leader, you are the alpha male, you are the one you're that dude. And here's this other person coming to challenge you and talk crazy to you. And it's like, yeah, I can ignore it and stuff like that. But like we said earlier, everybody has a limit. Everybody has a button that you press, ain't no coming back from it. And I think sometimes we let our pride get in the way, especially men. Like so I think there's some things we will, like I said, we'll jump out the window on no matter how much we know you shouldn't. Like there's just certain things like, I can't let you call me the B word. I'm sorry. Like as a man, I can't let another man call me that. Like you're going to have to show me. Like, granted, like, is that maybe the most rational way of thinking about it? No, I'm not perfect. I'm working on it. But my pride about me, I'm not going to just let you think you can say whatever and do whatever to me. You're going to have to show me that. You're going to have to earn that. So I think sometimes, our pride can definitely be our own destruction, like we've talked about, as athletes. One of my teammates, in 2013, he let his pride get in the way. Quarterback from the other team running his mouth, talking trash. He knocks him out. Now we don't have a championship game. He let his pride get in the way. How many other times do you see athletes, whether a real easy one is, for professional athletes when it comes to, drug testing, I love my weed. I got to have my weed and everything. That's cool and all, but you don't have enough pride about yourself or respect or discipline, as Ted also mentioned, to know that, okay, yeah, I love this thing, but I shouldn't love it more than the career that pays me to literally just play a sport I was playing as a child, millions of dollars. Like, I shouldn't let my pride get in the way of that, of doing what I need to do, taking care of my responsibilities. That's your pride working against you. And we see that so many times with athletes, so
the flip side of that, Ronnie, the pride is humility. And we don't talk about that. We have the flip side of this humility. I'll just give you an example, just popped in my head of, for his whole career, Hall of Famer, and I'm just going to use a sports reference, Barry Sanders. The most humble individual. He wasn't about the limelight. All he wanted to do was play his sport, do his job that God gave him the gift to do. He didn't care about the accolades and the press and all that other stuff. And when he went in the end zone, he acted like he was there. He had been there before. He always handed the ball to the referee. It was never a show where you hear, hey, see me. He goes right to the sideline, sit in the corner until it's his time to get back on the field. Those individuals show humility when they have great gifts. They could stand on that and say, look at me, but they're saying, I don't need all of that. I'm just here to do this, and I'm humble with it. And those are the kind of athletes that I really take an interest in, the ones who say, it's not me, it's my God-given ability and talent, and I'm just going to take and cherish this in this moment and live it out. And that's what I love about those type of people versus the braggadocious ones who got to tell you what they're going to do, what round it's going to be, how many times I'm going to swing, and have all these premonitions, boastfulness.
I think
Tom Brady, just do it on the field, man. Just do it on the field. And if I'm pummeling you on the field, I ain't got to say nothing. Yep. But what happens, Ronnie, I'm going to tell you, I know what happens. When he's talking smack and it's the end of the third quarter and you're down by 21 and you don't see a way for you to come back and he's still talking, I get it. That B word then is different than it was in the first quarter.
Oh, yeah. What, man? Look, I can't, man. I've been on both sides of it. I've been on the side where, we beating a team head in. Like, I remember in high school, we were playing a team. We beat them 48-0 in the second quarter. I'm talking about just beating their head in. And what? Hey, look, when you got a comfortable lead like that, you gonna talk. Every time they say something, you just point at the scoreboard like, you see that over there? You see what I'm talking about? Oh, all right, go on, shut up then. Thank you very much. And I've also been on that side too, where I've got my head beat in, on the scoreboard, and you just like, they over there laughing and giggling, and you just think, what the hell you laughing about, bro? I give you something to laugh about. We don't gave him something to laugh about. We over here getting destroyed right now, So yeah, I agree with that. And I think another great example of somebody who, kind of uses their pride for humility, is Tom Brady. I think Tom Brady, arguably the greatest quarterback to ever, put on a pair of cleats. I don't think there's no debate about that. I'm gonna say he's top 3 football players, because I'm not about to say he's a better football player than somebody like Lawrence Taylor or Jerry Rice. Granted, amazing quarterback, but those people were just, supremely. Ted, your mic's muted.
Ronnie, I'm so glad I'm in company of somebody is giving Tom Brady his due. That's my man. That's why I'm over here doing like this. And Dr. Pitts don't like it, though.
Hubristic, glory-seeking coaches may violate rules and regulations in an effort to increase their chances of winning. For example, the New England Patriots coaching staff videotaped the defensive signals used by opposing used by opposing coaches during games and practices. The Patriots used the information in order to call offensive plays to best take advantage of the defense, thus increasing their chances of success. Hubristic pride can lead to poor coaching decisions. A coach may leave a player in the game longer than appropriate because replacing the individual may make it clear that a mistake was made by either playing the athlete or by having left him or her in too long. Hubristic pride can lead coaches to make decisions concerning who plays where and when entirely upon opinions rather than the objective utilization of statistics that are part of the decision-making process. I just thought I'd share that. Y'all good.
Notice how you said
I knew you had to throw that in, Dr. Pitts. Just to try to.
This is what my research showed.
Hey, Ted.
I was just going based on
I respect it.
The Jones family should hire some of those Patriot staff. Maybe they might get to a Super Bowl this century if they did.
There you go, Ronnie. Let me give you a heart on that.
So they might actually get to a Super Bowl if they invest in some of those employees that the Patriots had, because their way of going about it has not been helpful at all.
How many Super Bowls has they won a Super Bowl in 2007, right? When was the last time they won?
2007 and 2009.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Okay.
But the point is, we've been there 3 times this century.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anyway,
I'm actually old enough.
I know how much y'all love to beat up on my Cowboys.
I'm actually old enough to see my team win a Super Bowl.
Wait a minute, Ronnie. Ronnie, you use the word century, meaning 100 years.
100 years, bro.
Wow.
Literally since the turn of this century, they ain't stepped.
You went beyond decades, Dr. Pitts, on you.
Yeah. Hey, look, y'all. I'm gonna go ahead and
you got 7 minutes. You ain't leaving.
I'm gonna go ahead. I gotta get changed and whatnot before I leave. I didn't get a chance to beforehand. But I just want to leave y'all with this. Dr. Pitts, I'm definitely praying for you and your colleagues and everything. My condolences to you, because I definitely hear the heaviness in your heart, and I'm praying that God can definitely lift some of that heaviness off of you this weekend, through His word and through His actions and everything, and definitely give you the power to see it through and continue to shine your light on those who need it. Ted, it's always a pleasure chopping it up with you, man. Don't let Dr. Pitts get on here talking that foolishness about the great Patriots and everything in the Patriot way. I'm gonna defend it. I'm gonna defend it
at all costs, sir. You left it in good hands.
Stand on your pride, Ted. Stand on your pride. But look, everybody, it was a pleasure chopping it up with y'all. I will be here next week for the full show, I promise. But look, if there's one thing to take away from this conversation before I leave, is don't allow your pride to make decisions for you in the heat of the moment. Always take a step back, evaluate things, and aggressively seek patience, not pride. All right. So I'll holler at y'all later. Dr. Pitts, have a great weekend. Ted, have a great weekend. Have a happy Memorial Day weekend as well.
You do the same, sir.
Thank you, Ronnie. You too. So Ted, I want to make sure that, athletes have lives outside of sport, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And what we know to be true is that, I mean, when you think about it, who they are on the field or the court or in the baseball diamond is who they are outside of their athletic play. And I think that it's important for us to tease that out for our audience, because it's systemic, right? It's like we're just the same person. It's not like they're, they can be one person. You are who you are. You
Hmm.
are who you are, and you show up in life that way. So, you know, let's talk about, let's give our audience some insight about what some signs of pride are. And I think that it's really important to have more in-depth discussion about how pride can destroy. Ronnie, pass it off to us. We know that the Bible says in Proverbs that pride comes before a fall.
Hmm.
Well, I think we need to talk about that. Whether somebody is a believer or not doesn't change the fact that pride comes before a fall.
True.
So, you know,
Truth is the truth.
right. When I think about some of the athletes that have fallen because of their pride, we know that there was some mental health stuff going on and what have you. But I think the first person that comes to mind, a couple of people come to mind. I think about um, Anthony Brown. I think about
Antonio Brown. Hmm.
Antonio Brown. I think about Terrell Owens.
Owens. Hmm.
Yep. I'm trying to think. Those are the first two that come to mind that
Hmm.
just in essence shot themselves in the proverbial foot, right? Because they wouldn't shut up. They just would not humble themselves. So just based on your experience, we know that you're an avid sports lover, and but also as someone who develops people professionally too, what are some other signs that you've seen of people that have an issue with pride that's getting in their way
Hmm.
when it comes to how they're navigating their lives?
My ear is so in tune to focus on the humility side of things.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the triggers, if you're talking to someone, listen for the word I.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If in a conversation, if everything is I did, I want, I have, and that's the entire breadth of the conversation,
Mm-hmm.
though that is not necessarily saying that that person has a pride issue, but
Mm-hmm.
it could potentially start with that.
Yeah.
I think from an athletic perspective, it's kind of hard because people kind of put what they see on television.
Mm-hmm.
They see a person on TV, maybe they say things. They're just bodacious person because
Mm-hmm.
it's entertainment.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm an entertainer. I'm trying to get endorsements. I need to take this moment in time that I've been given a stage for, and I'm going to maximize it with every opportunity to advertise
Mm-hmm.
myself, my gifts, my wares, or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
when I go home, people still think that you're that person, and they think that the characteristics of that person is who you really are. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people don't really know who you are until they really get to know you. So we have to, as a society, understand that those people aren't necessarily what we see them as an actor or a television performer or whatever it is. It's
Mm-hmm.
entertainment. So
Yes.
until you start looking at, and I usually do this, look at people in other programming like YouTube or
Yeah.
something where they were just in a normal setting, just to
Mm-hmm.
hear them talk about themselves.
Yeah.
That that conversation helps me to understand where they are.
Mm-hmm.
Are they believing their own hype about what someone else has built them up to be, this other
Mm-hmm.
person? Or
Mm-hmm.
are they dismissing that person as just a character?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm over here, and this is who I really am. This is what I
Mm-hmm.
believe. This is what my foundation, my values, everything is right here. So don't pay attention to that. That's just for show. If
Mm-hmm.
you really want to know me, this is where you find me right here. And so we got to look at where that person is on that side of things to determine whether or not pride is really an issue for them going down the wrong path.
Mm-hmm. You actually tied up, when I think clinically, three formal tips, or not tips, three formal warning signs that pride is present in someone, everything is personal, fault finding, and refusal to be influenced by other people. I think you encapsulated that in what you said. And you said something earlier that I think that people need to understand. A big part of that is it's a self-esteem issue, right? When people feel less than, people have a low sense of self, they have a diminished sense of self, they don't feel like they measure up. They feel that their skill set, their ability is being brought into question or challenged in any way, shape, form, or fashion. It can create major problems. And when you look at this relationship between pride and humility, or lack thereof, it's really important for people to understand that it really does rear its ugly head in so many different ways. So when we look at pride through a mental health lens, there's it's contributing things, right? It's like the child doesn't just come out the womb prideful. It's actually learned. It's learned behavior that results from all of these other things that are coming into play in a person's life, and it's manifesting itself in the form of pride. But the root of it is something deeper, and the root of it in many instances is these feelings of inadequacy, these feelings of having to validate oneself by your athletic performance, having to validate yourself by like you said, your ability to perform and to draw the crowd and to just carry on and so on and so forth, without even realizing that whether you're a believer in God or not, pride is going to cause you to fall. It's going to cause you to fall. And falling can be defined in a lot of different ways. Falling can be a loss of respect from your teammates or your coaches or the GM of the organization that you're playing for, or the institution of higher learning that you're playing for. Falling can be that your children or your spouse won't communicate with you anymore, and they emotionally cut off from you, which exacerbates the problem and causes a whole bunch of other issues. It morphs. Pride can morph and become this another atom bomb in your life that literally not only erodes you as an individual, but it has the ability to erode everything that you're associated with in your life. And one of the other warning signs that connects to this, and I want us to flesh this out a little bit, is it's ignorance to the needs of others. So that, like everything, I feel like everything is overlapping, right? And again, because it's systemic. So ignorance to the need of others, athletically and personally. Like, what's your thought about that, Ted? What does that look like?
Again, it goes back to how you value yourself. If you value yourself over the team, it's about my numbers. It's about me getting the Heisman. It's about me getting the all conference. I don't care if the team wins. It's about me performing enough to get to the next level for me. If you come along and they figure you out too, great. But because that comes from a selfish motive. And the struggle with that is sometimes it can be hidden to be a team motive, but really it's a self-pride motive that I need to accomplish this for me. It's not really for the team to win. So sometimes we got to listen to the comments and how people put the team before them. Now, sometimes people say these things, they've been coached to say things on television that line up with what most people want to hear. But catch them off camera, look at what they're talking about when nobody has a camera, or ask them a question and see if it lines up with what they're saying publicly. So the evaluation or the litmus tool for me is people can say what they want. I hear people easily say, I give God all the glory because I won.
Right. But how you living?
But does that line up with your everyday life? I'm not saying you ain't got flaws, But is it
Right.
consistent in your life? Is that part of where
Right.
you go every day? Or is it
Right.
just in this moment when you're winning?
Right. Right. No,
So
that's
there's some
real.
challenges with that, with how
Yeah.
people see themselves.
Mhm.
I mean, we've all been there. I put this on my Facebook page today. We've all
Mhm.
faced this animal in some way, shape, or form.
Mhm.
Why?
Mhm.
Why? Because either we've had to deal with somebody who has an issue with it,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
we're that person. And the crazy part, Dr. Pitts, and I only like to use the word crazy in front of a therapist, but the interesting part, if you will, is people don't know that they got an issue.
Right. That's real.
Talk to me about
No.
that. How do you when somebody say I'm not sick, but everybody else in the room who
See, she's sick.
diagnose all this
Mhm.
stuff is saying otherwise, and you're the one that don't believe it. How do you handle that?
Well, you know what? It's funny you say that because I can put a play and sort of a spin on words with that, right? So when you talk about being ignorance to the need of others, it also can be ignorance to your own needs, right? When you think about the fact that relationally, our external relationships are mirror images of our relationship with ourselves oftentimes, right? So when you are incapable or unwilling to make the needs of others something of importance to you, why would we think that you're truly capable to tend to your own needs? The pride literally convinces you that you're okay. Denial. That's why in treatment, Ted, particularly when we're dealing with individuals that are suffering from the disease of addiction, one of the things that we say is the first step to recovery is admitting that you have a problem. When you're looking at pride through a clinical lens, you have to understand that you cannot confront and conquer something that you won't even acknowledge exists. So that's what, as clinicians, we do exploratory questioning and we do circular relational questioning and we do reflexive questioning. Like we have so many different strategies that we use to engage our clients in conversation that illuminates things. And then you circle back, the circular aspect of it, right? You circle back, in essence, you give them enough rope. I'm not going to say the other part, but you give them enough rope and to trip over. Use that. We'll reframe it that way. You give them enough rope to trip over,
Right.
and you say, okay, well, you said that you're not a prideful person, but just based on this conversation we just had, you just told me that, yes, you're argumentative and combative. Yes, you're defensive. Yes, you refuse to say you're sorry. You um you you don't take responsibility and accountability for the wrong that you did in a situation, whether you apologize or not. Okay, well, those are warning signs.
Mhm.
Those are warning signs that you're a prideful person. So, sir, ma'am, how do you explain that?
Mhm.
And then, of course, it's in those scenarios that, well, Dr. Pitts, I guess I do have some pride. Okay, so there's no shame here. What are we going
Mhm.
to do about it? What
Mhm.
steps can we, because we're a team, and I tell my clients all the time, we need to learn how to work in tandem to help you to get from A to Z. So what are
Mhm.
we going to do about it to help you to conquer it now that you've acknowledged that it exists? And it's in that place and space that the work begins, but then we have one of the other warning signs that comes up, Ted, and that's when people refuse to submit to authority. That's a big one. That's a big one
We,
athletically. That's a big one personally.
and you know
And if
what?
I tell you
We were
nothing,
just talking about that, and my pastor was just preaching on that. Are you able to be in a position of being able to be corrected
mhm,
and be open to that? To be open to
yeah,
correction, which means you have to submit to someone's
yeah,
authority. You have to be willing to be questioned and held accountable. And
mhm,
most people don't. Their first response is, "I'm grown."
yeah.
Who are you?
All right, that's
Why
submit
you
work.
have the authority to talk to me like that
Yeah,
when you don't even know me? But everything you said that they said to you, you do know them because they had already spilled it out on the table.
Right.
And most
People
people
act
don't
like
want
the
to
word
confront that.
submit's a cuss word.
Hmm?
I
Say
said
again?
people act like the word submit is a curse word.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
And
like,
so the hard part with that is nobody's ever been given a model generally that has been one of a positive framework.
yeah,
Submissive, the first picture that pops in somebody's mind is you're a slave and you're
right.
bowed
Bowing
down to
down.
somebody and they're beating you with a whip, telling you what to
Yeah.
do, and they're running your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, it's not an issue of that. It's an issue if you trust the person who you're submitting to,
There it
and
is.
that person, you know, their intention for you is for better outcomes that you're choosing, not them for you.
Mm-hmm.
You're
Mm-hmm.
choosing to get help with,
Mm-hmm.
and they're willing to walk with you through this. But
Mm-hmm.
you got to understand that everything that it can't always be your way, and they're going to challenge you when you're not doing the right thing. And are you going to cut the relationship? Are you going to stand and buck back? Or are you going to say, you know what? You're absolutely right. I failed. I fell off the wagon. I didn't do it right. But I know you're here to get me back on track. Let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you
Humility.
open to that?
Yeah.
Most people aren't because it's painful. Because someone, when you're grown, is exposing you for your stuff that you got to confront, that you don't want to pull out the closet. But they're telling you it's good for your future, but you're not willing to unpack. You still carrying all that stuff, and they trying to tell you where to drop it off outside so Goodwill can come get it.
Right. That's real. I think part of it too, when we talk about submission, and you explained it beautifully, is that it's a cognitive distortion that people have in how they're defining submission, right? But I also think there's a cognitive distortion around how one can define authority, in that people are thinking authority within the context of superiority, right? But you can also define authority as expert, right? So you, as one of my mentors, there are some things that you have greater authority in than Dr. Pitts does because you've been doing it longer. So humility says, you know what? Ted has expertise, greater authority in his knowledge as it relates to A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, which you and I have those conversations, right? And you say, well, you tell me all the time, consider this, 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 and this. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. And that's what I tell folks, is that learning is a lifelong experience. We don't know everything. Just because I have, letters behind my name and I have certain credentials, and I say all the time, I don't profess to know everything. I don't profess to have all the answers. And one of the things that I love, Ted, about how I was raised is that I was raised to take pride in self in the positive way, right? There have been times, and I've said this before on the show, there have been times that the pride that I had fell over into the negative pride, but I thank God for Jesus that I'm from a family that has no problem knocking you down. Look, that has no, look, hard stuff, that has no problem checking you and reminding you that you get, as my grandma used to say, you're getting too full of yourself, Missy.
Smelling yourself.
You're right, you smell yourself, they'll knock you on down a few pegs. And you come back to your senses, but it's humbling, and I'm eternally grateful for how I was raised, in that, we were charged with the responsibility of carrying ourselves a certain way and behaving a certain way, speaking a certain way, but also just instilling the importance of humility. And when you've had that importance instilled in you, it keeps you from being, as my Uncle Tony used to say, it keeps you from being knocked down and rolled underneath the pew. Because the Lord has a way of getting your attention, right? So when you think about that, I want to implore our audience to recognize that, reframe how you're seeing the words submit and authority. Replace submit with humbling oneself, and replace authority with, it's just suggesting that someone has greater expertise, greater knowledge in an area than you do. And my thing is, you want people to love you enough to tell you the truth.
Amen.
You know what I mean? You want to be
Yes.
receptive to that. You want people to care enough about you to breathe life into you and to help you to grow and to mature and develop. And certainly that is something that absolutely positively has to happen athletically, because you look at the Tom Brady, and I give him his props,
Mhm.
the Tom Brady's and the Michael Jordans and the LeBron Jameses and the Kobe Bryants and the Dwayne Wades and some of the great athletes that have graced our presence, right? If you listen to any interview that any of them have ever had, they talk about the importance of humility. They talk about being teachable. They
Mhm.
talk about, not only do they talk about being teachable, they talk about teaching and being
Mhm.
able to, that's why they call them the GOAT. They talk
Mhm.
about being able to educate and empower and liberate these younger athletes to get out of their own way so
Mhm.
that they become more pliable. And it's really, really important, because the next warning sign is inability to see opposing viewpoints. So, like,
Mm.
is anybody crazy enough? But I bet you some money that there are. Is
Mhm.
anybody crazy enough to sort of argue Tom Brady down that you shouldn't do this, and this? Heck yeah.
Mhm.
Heck yeah.
They are people.
There are quarterbacks out there that he wouldn't be able to tell them nothing, because they
Mhm.
don't like him. Because
Mhm.
they don't like him, they have an inability to listen to him and thus to learn from him, because his perspective of how to develop mastery at the quarterback position is different from what somebody else told them.
Yep.
Speak to that.
We it's sad that people are so put in a box with their own
Mhm.
thoughts, their
Mhm.
own experiences.
Mhm.
And I hate to say this, I was talking, and you're an international person. You talk to people
Mhm.
from other countries and
Yeah,
all that.
every
And you
day.
kind of alluded to it earlier when you were saying, when they asked you the question, what's going on over
Yeah,
here?
yeah.
Okay. A pride, I'll use this as pride. America is looked at as a prideful country. Okay.
Yes.
To the rest of the
Yes.
world, we're looked at as, look at the golden child who has everything,
Yeah.
and look at them complaining about everything. And we're here wishing we had some of the resources they do, and they still complain.
Yeah.
My the hard part was that we believe that when we go to another country, they're supposed to speak English. I'm just using this as an example.
Yeah, yeah.
I shouldn't have to I shouldn't have to go to Argentina and speak Spanish when I go out to a restaurant. You're supposed to know English. I'm from America. And we feel like that and walk around pompous enough that I don't need to know your language. You translate it in English and give me what I want.
We call that destructive entitlement clinically.
So how do we view ourselves as
Mhm.
Americans, and then how other people view us? So to
Mhm.
take that in, and what you just said is, it's about us not be willing to see how other people live,
Yeah, yeah.
what works for them could be better for us.
Mhm.
And we're not open and willing to be receptive to other viewpoints and ideas. I am so glad that I am a person who genuinely likes to learn new stuff from
Yes.
different people, a different way
Mhm.
they did it. Now I'm going to ask questions, because not because I'm trying to discredit or
Mhm.
compare it to my thing,
Mhm.
but just to see, like, well, why do you do it that way? And what's the
Yeah.
benefit of that? I'm genuinely interested. And
Yeah.
sometimes I find the way other people do things, they build a better mousetrap. But I've been
Yeah.
stuck with the one I've had in my head for years,
Yeah.
not willing to let it go until someone shows it and I'm open and say, hey, this is a different way to wash your car. I don't have to
Yeah.
use as much water to do this. Or I don't
Yeah.
have to, jump as high or go out as much to do whatever.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
can do something different, get the same result or even better
Mhm.
by being open to other people's perspectives. And so
Mhm.
I just feel that I learned so much more. I'm
Mhm.
excited every day to hear what other people think.
Mhm.
That's just me.
I think that that is a powerful, powerful tip. And what I want to say it to our audience, particularly to our scholar athletes at every level, is study champions. Study champions, not just those that have gone to the league, but, you know, in a lot of districts around the country at the high school level, and truth be told, even at the midget level, right? There have been athletes that have come before them that have done extraordinarily well in whatever the sport was. Connect, reach out and connect with that athlete, you know, look at film, talk to people, find out, you know, what they did, how did they develop mastery from a behavioral and an athletic performance perspective, and be open and receptive to learning beyond what you're envisioning that you can do in and of your own strength based upon your own gifts and talents. And that ties to never asking for help and always expecting service, right? It's all about me, 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 all about me. No, no, no. There's times where you have to humble yourself and recognize you don't have all the answers. You don't. That's, you know, part of the reason why we as clinicians, we go to treatment team is because that's an opportunity for us to work collaboratively with our superiors, with our colleagues that have different levels of expertise as it relates to emotional, relational, behavioral, and mental health. And we can present a case or cases that we may be having difficulty managing and receive those additional perspectives so that we have greater insight. It's a each one reach one type approach that allows each of us to grow clinically so that we're able to provide greater, more comprehensive and quality service to each of our clients. Well, the same thing is applicable athletically. You have to recognize, like, come down off your high horse and recognize that there's always room for improvement. Always, always, always. Yes, people have natural gifts and talents. They do, but that doesn't mean that there's not still room for growth and development. So you may be a natural on the court, on the football field, lacrosse, swimming, whatever your sport is, but that doesn't mean that you can't improve. Ask for help. Be courageous enough and humble enough to ask coaches or trainers or even some fans, you know what, when you look at me, what do you see? It reminds me, there was a scene in it's the older movie The Best Man, right? And when they show the scene where Lance is the girl that ended up marrying Mia, when Mia met Lance in the newspaper room that day, and she was like, well, you know, if you keep, you know, falling on your knees, you're going to wear and tear your knees, that and the other. His head was all, the way they depicted him in the movie, he was all psyched, right? He was Lance. He was Lance Armstrong, right? He could do no wrong. And she broke him down.
Like a fraction.
Right. In 3 minutes about everything that he needed improvement on. And he was like, oh. You mean I'm not the man? You are, but you're the man that needs improvement. And be open and receptive to getting that feedback. Feedback is growth. Feedback is food for your soul, personally and athletically.
And Dr. Pitts, I do want to say that when we, as the person on the other end, we're supposed to be encouraging people. We have to be careful that we don't cross the line and get this giving them the what to do. Yeah, that's good. We have to make recommendations when we're in this partnership of trying to help you from stage A to stage B. I need you to understand that I'm giving you something to consider. Here is some of my expert opinion based on some research that I've done that these things work. Or my personal experience, my testimony is I walked that walk before, and this is what happened. This is why I might suggest that you look at these 3 options versus the 3 I took. Now, whether they do it or not is not up to us, and we can't take on the responsibility of whether they choose to accept our information. But the careful part in any clinician or anybody that's helping people, we have to understand we're giving people options to consider based on our experience versus you should do this, walk down that street, make an A, B, C, and D, and you're going to win. And when those things don't always happen because we're not God, that person has a lack of trust in any clinician after you or any
Yes.
other person that says I'm willing to help you, it becomes a trust issue because it didn't work before. So I just wanted to throw that in there, that we need to be careful in how we phrase the statements when we're helping people so that they can make their own decisions versus us giving them the decisions to make.
No, that's spot on. And to piggyback on that, what I say to any clinicians who may be listening, or anybody who's in therapy, one of the things that I lay out there, literally in the very first session, I tell my clients all that, like literally, I say it to everybody in the very first session, the orientation session. I tell them that, we're a team, right? But I don't make the assumption that you want my shared expertise, that you want my resources, that you want my input, that you want anything other than me to listen. So I ask for permission. And they're like, Dr. Pitts, what do you mean you ask for permission? And I do it. And I said, like, I say that to every single solitary new client. I said, I will always ask you for permission before I make a recommendation, because you might not want that. You might not want it. So you need to invite me, if you will, to offer a recommendation or a resource, a perspective, or anything. And I found that keeps that trust solidified, because clients are like, oh, I'm not pushing anything on you. You in essence set the pace. You set the pace for the therapeutic relationship, and you set the parameters. I'll even ask for permission. I literally will say, can I stretch your perspective a little bit on that? May I, offer you a different perspective on that? Can I elevate your perspective on that? And I actually ask them for permission before I say or do anything. So no client is going to ever be able to say, Dr. Pitts, you told me to do this, that. And I tell them all the time, Dr. Pitts doesn't tell you what to do. I don't tell you what to do. If you give me permission, I'll make a recommendation. And what you do with that information is up to you, period.
So Dr. Pitts, real quick, has anybody ever told you, no, you don't have permission?
They have. Oh, absolutely.
Really?
They totally do. They'll tell you, like, you know what? No. And that's fine. That is totally fine. That's totally fine. And here's the thing. It takes humility as a clinician to not take clients rejecting because they're not rejecting you. They're rejecting your perspective. They're rejecting your insight, and that's their prerogative. They are allowed to, and be okay with that. You have to be okay. It's like, okay.
Girl, you sound like the same. You go through the same stuff Jesus went through. He sent them disciples out there, 2 by 2, and he told them that you're going to say what I'm telling you to say. You're going to recommend the right thing and teach the right thing, and they're not going to hear you. So here's what you do. Dust your shoes off when you leave that town, and don't take none of that rejection, and go to the next place where I'm going to send some people to help, for you to help. So you already walking in that perspective. I'm glad to hear that. I see it.
You know what? And here's what I say, and I've said it jokingly on the show before. At 16, when I went to the altar and prayed and asked the Lord to make me, to my family, my friends, my community, in the world, what Moses was to the children of Israel, I had no idea what I was praying. I was praying from the innocence and purity of a child's heart. I didn't know that meant that I was going to go through sheer hell. I didn't know that I was going to be knocked down and rolled underneath the pew, and I was going to be stripped down and built back up and molded and shaped. And it's like, yes, I wrote The Queen Within, Becoming the Woman God Intended. I'm still becoming her. So when I wrote that book, right, that was how much of her I had become to that point that I wrote the book. There's more chapters to come, right? So Ted, we got like 2 minutes. So I wanted to highlight a couple of things. Yep. I wanted to highlight a couple of things concerning how people become prideful, because I think people need to understand that. I'm going to share real quick how to, some tips to how to let go of pride. And then I want you to give us your final thought for today, your final takeaway for our audience. And then you can close us out if you're okay with that, sir.
Sure thing.
Okay. So here are the steps you'll need to take to understand how you've become an egotistical, prideful person and how to change that behavior. Childhood teachings, innate personality characteristics, fear of loss of control, changing roles, attachment to dominance and power, compensation for those inner feelings of low self-esteem we talked about. And that's just a few. There's more, but those are like the key ones. Now, how do you let go of pride? How do you let go of pride? Well, for those that believe, Jesus can help you.
Yeah,
So
that's
he
the
told us
answer.
again. But for
That's the
those that
answer.
don't believe, that's it. Look, we don't force our belief system on nobody. So how do you let go? Be willing to recognize what has contributed to your pride and share those experiences with others or a therapist or whomever. Being vulnerable that way can encourage you to help, to get help in changing. Open up your mind and heart to the joys of authentic transparency, recognizing that humility is a beautiful state once achieved by being more liberated. Trust that others will feel compassion and support you as you try to become better at letting go of pride. Recognizing what the price will be if you continue to engage in prideful behavior. Recognize the positive impact of letting go of your unhealthy pride and have the courage to stay the course, even though discouraging obstacles may arise.
Awesome. I agree with you, Dr. Pitts. A lot of those points were probably things that were already in my head. My final thoughts real quickly would be always make sure to keep pride out of you, becoming destructive for you is keep the proper perspective of who you are in the grand scheme of things. God is in charge of the universe. We are nothing but a vapor. Our time, the way we look at ourselves is not the same way he looks at us. So if we think about ourselves as just another one that he's put on this earth to help other people, put other people's thoughts before our own, I think it'll help keep the pride animal or the pride issue from becoming a destructive factor in our lives. And so every day for me personally, I have to say to God be the glory, because people do call me, Ted, you did this. Thank you for that. ... I get all of that. I appreciate, because you're looking at this human being that's what you see. But I want you to, I give the credit where the credit is due, so that weight of pride doesn't grow in me, because it's so easy to do. And so I pray every day that I can continually stay away from it, the unhealthy piece of it, but keep the healthy part of it, which means that I take care of myself and the things that are important to me and have a healthy relationship with other people.
Yeah. That's all we have today, folks. We definitely want to keep the Uvalde community here in Texas in our prayers, the individuals in Buffalo and all of those, because I don't know if a lot of people realize it, Ted, I said last week, from January 1st until today, we've experienced 199 mass shootings in this country just since January 1st of this year. So that's a lot of prayers that are needed, a lot of compassion, a lot of empathy, a lot of mental health support, a lot of financial support, a lot of love that is needed. So please, please, please keep every one of these families and these communities in your thoughts and your genuine thoughts and prayers. Let me just add the genuine piece, your genuine thoughts and prayers, because there but the grace of God go I. It could be any one of us. Tomorrow is not promised to any one of us. And we wouldn't ever want to know that pain. We continue to pray for the healing, for the comfort in days and weeks and months and years to come for these families and these communities. That's all we have for you today, folks. Until next weekend, I am Dr. Lauren Pitts, and this is House Talk Pregame. Have a good weekend, everyone. Have a safe holiday. Bye-bye.